Hey everyone, welcome back to Secret Sonics. This is episode 145 with Jack Hartley, and we had a great chat about so many things, including transitioning from bands into the studio, trends towards singles and heavy music, what his work schedule looks like, pre-production, the heavy record production process, his approach to bass and drums, how much detail goes into tracking drums and collecting vast samples from every drummer on the kit they play. We talk about his approach to mixing, working in many subgenres, staying healthy, being honest with artists, and trusting yourself, and everything in between. So I love this chat. I think you will too. So with all that to say, here's my conversation with Jack Hartley coming up right here on Secret Sonics. Hey everyone. If you're anything like me, you often find yourself looking for business insight in podcasts. And I'm sure many of you are also into meditation and reflection to help better understand yourself. Former guest of the show, Carl Bonner, decided to launch a podcast that brings these two elements together. It's a series of guided self-reflection exercises, but specifically for freelance creatives like you and me, focusing on the struggles we face as we try to grow our businesses, while also finding more happiness in the work that we do. It's called Thanks for Thinking. It's definitely an unusual format, but if you want to grow your self-awareness, find deeper career satisfaction, and make more money, then I think this podcast might be for you. Experience it for yourself and click the link in the show notes below. You're listening to Secret Sonics, a podcast exploring the creative side of music production. Join us weekly for honest conversations with real-world music producers and audio professionals. Hello, and welcome back to Secret Sonics. I'm your host, Ben Wallach. My guest today is Jack Hartley. Jack is an Australian producer and audio engineer who works from Interim Recording Studios in the heart of Adelaide. With over 15 years of experience as a musician/songwriter, Jack's toured extensively throughout Australia, New Zealand, South Asia, and Japan. On the audio front, Jack's a chameleon of the many subgenres of heavy music, having worked with a number of acts including Truth Corroded, Hidden Intent, Relapse, Werewolves, Shatterbrain, and many more. Jack and I connected recently online, and I invited him onto the podcast, which he's graciously agreed to do. So with all that to say, welcome to Secret Sonics, Jack.
Hey, Ben. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. I'm doing good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty well. Today was my one day off a week, so...
Right, you were telling me you take Mondays off, not Sundays.
Yeah, well, I guess like a lot of the more local bands and stuff I record work full-time, so that leaves me with little to no option but to just kind of fill up my weekends and take Monday off. But It works for me. I kind of like chilling out when everybody else is just starting the week.
It's the reverse schedule.
Exactly. Yeah, somewhat.
Yeah, I totally dig that. In Israel, actually, we have Fridays off, not Sundays, because our Sabbath is on Saturday.
All right.
So we get like Fridays off to prepare for the Sabbath. So for me, Sunday is like the beginning of my week. That's actually why I release my podcast on Sunday mornings.
All right. I had no idea. That's super fascinating. Yeah. Cool.
For me, Sunday's Monday. So
yeah.
that's why I just jump into it. It's the first thing I do.
Definitely.
Yeah. Amazing. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your story. You know, how did music become a thing for you and how did that evolve into production, engineering, all the stuff that you're doing today?
For sure. I picked up the guitar when I was about 11 or 12. My dad was a guitarist and he kind of dabbled in folk music and country and stuff like that, and wasn't really a careerist or anything, but I was always around music because of him. And I eventually picked up the guitar myself after many years of thinking it was pretty uncool because it was something my dad was into, but eventually I came around and yeah, pretty much as soon as I picked up the guitar, I just kind of, like subconsciously was trying to capture the guitar. And, like as soon as I could play a riff, I was trying to record the riff and just to kind of get, like some type of feedback, to myself about how well I was playing. And I kind of progressed like most people, that pick up a guitar in their early preteens and, went through stages of playing in bands and recording demos and just doing the whole kind of, jamming and connecting with other musicians thing for a long time. And the whole time I always had audio kind of in parallel. Picked up a copy of Fruity Loops pretty early on in my teens, and then a family friend gave me a copy of Cakewalk, I think it was, and I was just kind of doing the best I could to make some some ghetto recording rigs work, and then eventually I got my hands on I think they're called the BR 1600, which was like a little 8-track hard disk recorder that Boss put out, and they were pretty difficult to navigate. Like the interface was just this kind of little LED screen, and that kind of helped me get my chops up in hindsight with like programming and sequencing and stuff like that. And yeah, just kind of progressed pretty naturally. I found myself towards my later teens recording friends bands, like from my parents' shed. I had very tolerant neighbors that just put up with us making noise on the weekends. And
when you're saying shed, you mean garage?
Yeah, basically it was a converted garage, and it was my bedroom as well. So I would kind of flip my mattress up and move a drum kit in, and
as you do.
Exactly, yeah, just kind of put in the work kind of thing, and then sleep on the floor at night, and then
that mattress is doing a lot of sound treatment. For up and comers, right?
Yeah, we would move it. It's funny, we would actually move it around and make little kind of vocal booths with it and stuff like that. So it was handy having it there. But yeah, that was kind of my late teens, just recording friends bands and trying to work it out as I went. And all the while I was kind of pretty involved in the like metal and metalcore and death metal scene, playing in bands myself. And that lasted till probably my mid-20s, when I decided to kind of really take the audio thing a little bit more seriously.
Why was that? What happened in your mid-20s?
To be honest, I think just playing in bands had just run its course for me. I think the kind of like young rock star fantasy had all but been shattered by that point. And I did some things that I'm pretty like stoked looking back that I did. I got to visit lots of other countries and see more of my own country and connect with a lot of cool people and make lifelong friendships. But I think if you're being honest with yourself, you'll over time kind of realize and come to terms with the fact of whether the touring and playing live and being a social person in terms of the band thing, if that's for you or not. And it's not like I'm completely antisocial, but I think I found I had an inclination that maybe kind of hanging out in a dimly lit studio and making music was more exciting and fulfilling to me than going out and playing it live. And once I came to terms with that and accepted it, I kind of thought, I think I'd like to put more energy into this. And I think like where my energy was otherwise being spent being in a band and writing music and maintaining the interpersonal relationships and climbing the ladders and all of that stuff, I thought perhaps I could put that into audio, and I did, and I just kind of continued on that trajectory of recording friends bands, and that kind of grew over time, and the bands got better and better, and the opportunities got more and more, and I eventually ended up in one of the better studios in Adelaide and got a residency there, working out of the building and hiring my own studio. And yeah, so it's been that way for about 3 or 4 years now. I've been working full time doing the audio thing and haven't really looked back.
And so what's your situation at the studio? It's interim studio, right?
Yeah.
Are you freelance, or they hire you to record there? What does that look like?
I'm essentially like freelance, hiring Studio B there, but it's a pretty cool setup I've got with the owners of that studio. I mean, I moved in when the studio was under a previous ownership, and basically the setup was like, I'm a freelance engineer, a sole trader. I'm kind of my own entity. I'm just hiring a room there, but I also get to kind of use the facility at my own leisure. So I get to kind of use the Studio A and the live room, and that's generally how it's been, and that setup's worked for all parties involved for the period of me being there.
So you're basically paying them rent to work out of there, And they give you like access to the whole studio basically when you
Yeah,
need it.
exactly.
That's awesome. That's a great setup because like you don't always need the live room, right? Sometimes you just need the little room, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, to be quite honest, I'm so comfortable in my smaller room and my tighter live room that I generally tend to get drums done or anything that requires kind of a live setup. I get it done and then pretty quickly drag it back to my room because I trust it and I know it well. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
So these days, you're a bit more established. What are you looking for in artists when they approach you to work on a record? What do you say? Hey, I think this is going to be a good fit for me. I think I can really help you with your record.
Well, I guess the past few years I've kind of been steering more towards the various heavy subgenres. So initially that's goes without saying that if it's heavy and it's got big drums and distorted guitars, then I'm probably going to be a good fit for working with the band. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just yesterday I wrapped up tracking on an indie session, so I don't exclusively work on heavy stuff, but majority of the stuff I work on is the various heavy subgenres. So right out of the gate, if it's heavy and bombastic and noisy or comes from the same spirit of those kind of subgenres of metal, then
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be already a good fit. But beyond that, I think as time has gone on and the level of talent I've worked with has gone up and the bands have kind of been better and stuff like that. I tend to look for people that want to really do something awesome and that are really invested in it. I mean, I'll work with anybody that wants to work with me and anything that's a good fit. But I think I work best when I have a band full of, or individuals that are just wanting to go the extra mile and wanting to really get it done, regardless of how difficult things might be or how difficult it is to get to the end result. So generally, yeah, if I understand where they're coming from stylistically, and if they seem like they're really invested in doing a great job and getting great results, then I'm all in.
And in terms of like, working with bands, like I've spoken with people that work with bands a lot and they kind of book out a few weeks to do a record,
Mm-hmm.
and then they finish up that record and then they move on to the next record. Whereas, I'm kind of working on a bunch of projects simultaneously. I'll have an artist come in for a few hours, they'll leave, then I'll edit something or mix something or do something else, and then they'll come in another week and then we'll continue. What does that look like for you?
Pretty similar to you actually. It's a mixed bag of things. It depends project to project. I mean, next week I've got a project that's going to be lasting about 2.5 weeks, and that's all I'll be working on. But for the most part, it's shorter sessions and just lots of things on the go. So I'm at the moment, I think I'm juggling maybe 13 or 14 various kind of
Wow.
projects, which I mean, part of that's not typical. Part of that is I had some health issues late last year, and some of the work just kind of built up over time, and I'm slowly kind of just working my way out of that. But
Well, I'm glad you're feeling better.
oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, I'm back in the studio and enjoying it. So that's the important thing, and happy and healthy. So, but yeah,
Good,
generally,
good. I'm happy to hear that.
thanks. Generally, I'll have people come in for 3 to 4 sessions at a time, more or less, and we'll just chip away at it, and it becomes a bit of a challenge to kind of keep track of where
Yeah,
each, as I'm sure like even just kind of like recalling preamp settings and outboard settings and stuff like
right.
that is
Yeah.
that's a whole job in itself. And yeah, but just kind of keeping track of where things were. I often will kind of like lean on the artist that's been thinking about that project and that project only for weeks and weeks and weeks to be like, so where were we again? We were up
Yeah.
to backing vocals, and we what did we feel about this, and that'll kind of give me a refresher, and then we'll just jump in and really dig in. But yeah, I tend to kind of jump around from project to project and work in
Yeah.
shorter bursts, and that works for me because I've got a bit of an ADD brain, so it
Right.
affords me